Hey all, welcome to Share Trek. This is Raj here. The talk of the genomics town is the Prime Medicine IPO. Friends, I personally think that at this point of time, with a recession looming and with increasing interest rates globally, and also with various central banks performing quantitative tightening to mop up liquidity, I don't think this is the right time to bring out an IPO because the company may not get the right value. They may have to issue more shares to get the same amount of money, and selling those shares is also going to be difficult. However, Prime Medicine is planning to do exactly that. It's planning to come out with an IPO as per reports. And today, I want to share with you what I think about this IPO and give you my opinions. So let's get started. Welcome back, friends. First, I'd like to give you a bit of background. Prime Medicine was founded in 2019 and launched in 2021 with $315 million in financing. Prime Medicine's co-founder David Liu owns 25% of the company. The company's other key backers are private investors like T. Rowe Price, GV that owns around 15%, ARC Venture Partners owns around 13%, F Prime Capital owns around 13%, and New Path Partners owns around 6%. And Moore Strategic Venture also has a investment in this company. These are all early investors who put their money into the company. David Liu and Andrew Anzalone are co-founders of this company. And in fact, David Liu is also a co-founder and consultant for Beam Therapeutics, Pairwise Plants, Exotherapeutics, and YKY Therapeutics, to name a few. He owns founders' equity in these companies, receives consultancy from them, and serves on their scientific advisory boards. Prime Medicine works to develop novel gene editing therapies for the treatment of various diseases. Specifically, it's using prime editing technology to develop curative genetic therapies. The Prime Medicine IPO is looking to raise $100 million and list on the NASDAQ index under the ticker symbol PRME. So that's the plan at this point of time. The quantum is $100 million. The underwriters on the IPO are JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and Jefferies. The filing has not provided time or share price, so we don't have those information yet. They may come up in the near future as we go closer to the IPO date. October 2019 saw Beam Therapeutics announcing collaboration and exclusive licensing agreement with Prime Medicine for prime editing technology. Well, at this stage, I remember that David Liu is also founder of Beam Therapeutics. So keep that in mind, because David Liu has got his hands on so many different companies and he's on the scientific advisory board of all of them, including Beam. Under the agreement, Beam has the exclusive right to develop prime editing technology for the creation or correction of any single base transition mutations, as well as for the treatment of sickle cell disease, both of which Beam is already pursuing with its base editing technology. Transition mutation, for example, from A to G, C to T, are the largest single class of disease-associated genetic mutation and are also potentially treatable with base editing. Beam plans to evaluate prime editing technology for potential use in future programs. Part of Beam's strategy is to continue to access emerging technologies in gene editing and delivery while finding new ways to create meaningful options for patients. And their collaboration with and contribution to formation of Prime Medicine is one of the examples of that approach, allowing Beam to incorporate prime editing into Beam platform. As part of the collaboration, Beam is providing initial interim leadership to Prime Medicine for the first year of the collaboration and will have the right to designate a member on Prime Medicine's board. The parties will also grant each other non-exclusive licenses to certain CRISPR technology and delivery technology to enable the development of prime editing products. So this will enable a mind share between the managements and optimize their use of the technology, and also make sure that they don't step on each other when they develop therapies, and also they harness all the synergies that is possible. And that's how I'm looking at this partnership. This partnership aims to enable both Beam and Prime Medicine to advance the technology in distinct spaces, with Beam focusing on the kinds of edits that are most similar to the base editing technology. Somewhere around March 17, 2021, David Liu gave a speech at Simon Center for Social Brain, and there he said, "I'll also describe prime editing, a versatile and precise genome editing method that directly writes new genetic information into a specified DNA site using a catalytically impaired Cas9 fused to an engineered reverse transcriptase programmed with a prime editing guide RNA that both specifies the target site and encodes the desired edit. Elsewhere, prime editing is described as a search and replace function with higher accuracy. So that said, let us look at the Prime Medicine website before I offer my conclusions about this IPO. Well, friends, here we are in the home page of Prime Medicine, and what we see here is a description of prime editing. It says prime editing has the potential to address approximately 90% of known disease-causing mutations. Versatile, precise, and efficient, prime editing can correct almost all types of gene mutations and make edits that modify an array of gene regulatory sequences in therapeutically relevant cells and organs. And in terms of approach, you can see a diagram out here which shows the prime editing molecule, which is opening up the double strand in one place and making the modification without creating double strand breaks. So that's the positive aspect of prime editing. I don't know much about prime editing because, as you guys know, I'm not a scientist, but out here it says prime editing is a technology that acts like a DNA word processor to search and replace disease-causing genetic sequences at that precise location in the genome without causing double-stranded breakage. Here I'm on the next page of the prime editing website, which talks about their science. So here we have the first step, which is search. Prime editor complex initiates search for target DNA. So this is the prime editing complex, and find and nick. So prime editor complex finds DNA with target mutation and nicks one strand. So this black diagram out here is the DNA, and the target has been found and one of the strands has been nicked. It's not a double strand break, only one strand has been nicked, and the search portion goes and latches itself to a location out here at the site of the edit that has taken place on one of the strands. And the next step here is prime, which says nick DNA strand, primes the RT domain for DNA synthesis, and then replace prime editor complex copies in corrective DNA sequence. Now, friends, I'm not a scientist, so I can't vouch for all of these things, but it looks fantastic. And I do not understand the mechanism, how this works. It may take a few days or maybe a few months before I get a good understanding. At that time, I'll come back to you with a video where I'll talk about it. But at this point of time, we take it on faith that the prime editing complex would search, find and nick the DNA, prime it, and replace the edits in the place and close the DNA strand and complete the edit. So that's what I think is going to happen out here. And it allows for converting any base pair into any other, A to C and C to A to G and G to C, G to T and T to G, and C to T and T to C, and also A to T and T to A, and G to C and C to G. So this is how it works. So more about this at a later date when I have much more comfort discussing how this works, because in the next few months, we would have a lot of experts coming up with illustrated explanation, and one of those explanation will register in my mind properly, and I'll feel confident to come back and talk to you about prime editing. At this point of time, we'll take it on faith that this works, and it's a global search and replace kind of a function. So with that said, I'd like to turn to the IPO question, and here are my conclusions. First of all, it seems David Liu has got his hands on so many companies in this sector, and he's on the scientific advisory board. So in a positive sense, he would have a very good idea of where each of these companies are progressing, and he can look at synergy possibilities, and he can make sure that optimum research takes place and people are not wasting their time overstepping each other in these companies. But at the same time, when I look at the prime editing proposition as a global search and edit, it seems too fantastic. And of course, I don't mean to say that David Liu is bad or that this company is bad, but we shouldn't forget situations like what happened with Theranos, where it was a great promise that a single blood test would do a whole lot of things. So this seems very fantastic, and we have to wait and watch what happens. That is first note of caution I have out here. I'm not saying that prime editing is a fad or something which is fake or anything like that. I'm not qualified to make those kind of judgments, but what it promises to do seems to be fantastic, because we already know that we have a problem with the delivery technology. First of all, the virus, AAV virus and lentivirus that we are using, they seems to be in a situation where they'll be phased out because there is a lot of off-base edit, penetration issues, and those kind of things. Second thing is how big a molecule can the virus carry. So that's the second question that we have, that the industry is trying to address. And apart from that, we also have this question about the off-base edits happening. So all those problems are already existing just with CRISPR-Cas9 and also with base editing. So at this point of time, to look at a search and replace function, I would like to see more proof before I would invest in this kind of proposition. So we'll have to wait and watch what happens. And guys, I'm an investor, I'm not a scientist, so I do not read scientific papers and other things. I depend on people interpreting all these technologies. So I'm going to wait for a few more months and see for myself whether I can logically convince myself as an investor that the risk reward is adequate before I can price the shares for this company or price the value of this company. Also, many companies are working on a whole lot of genetic conditions. So whatever Prime Medicine decides to work on, it's going to be a late starter, and it's likely to come behind the others in terms of most of the popular and easy low-hanging fruit in terms of genetic medicine for diseases. So there is a disadvantage there for Prime Medicine, but it may have an advantage in other areas where other companies have not made any progress so far or don't have that in their pipeline. So that's the other opportunity that I see for Prime Medicine in those areas. And as the days go by, that area keeps on shrinking because more and more companies increase their pipeline candidates and start working on them. So with that said, now I turn my focus to the IPO itself. From a financial perspective, at this point of time, the markets are very difficult. If you recollect my talks about Bluebird, which already has 2 therapies which have been approved by FDA and it's commercializing it, it has got very less cash in its balance sheet. And they have not yet announced an IPO, because at that time I was also saying that at this point of time, if a company brings out IPO, then they are going to have to sell more shares to raise the same amount of money. So the IPO pricing will be low, and also the uptake is going to be difficult, and the underwriters will definitely have to do their work. So the underwriting commissions will also be very high in this kind of an environment. So that's my thought process, and I wouldn't expect any company to do an IPO at this point of time. But if Prime definitely does an IPO at this point of time, then I think it's going to have to issue a lot of shares to get the $100 million that it wants right now than it would have had when the market was good. At that time, probably it would have been able to get away with maybe half of the number of shares and still net $100 million. So that's my thought process out here. So I'm very skeptical about this IPO. I'm going to be reading more and more about Prime Medicine in order to bring to you my opinions. And my opinions may change based on what I get to read, because with experts like David Liu and also the people who are offering advice to them, the merchant bankers, they're all big merchant bankers, and they have a very good understanding of the IPO market. So the more I get to understand about their rationale and what they are thinking and why they are bringing out the IPO out here, I might change my opinion. But at this point of time, it doesn't seem to me a wise decision to come out with an IPO for Prime Medicine, especially given that they have nothing in their pipeline at this point of time on their website. And without any progress, without any pipeline out there, and just the promise of a technology, I think it's going to be a tall order to get the IPO up and going. But I might be wrong. So watch this space. I'll bring out more videos about Prime Medicine going forward. That's all, my friends, for today. With that, I would like to bring this video to an end. And if you like this video, please do not hesitate to press a like out there. And if you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe. This is a place where I'm going to bring a lot of genomic industry information, and you would want to see the videos as and when they come up. So I'd advise that if you're not yet pressed the notify button, please press the notify button so that you get my daily videos, and you can decide which one you want to watch and which one you don't want to watch. So with that, bye for now.